Hey felines, it's Raymond, and one thing I get often asked while developing my dream game, Project Feline, is how do you do it all on your own? Does it not get lonely? How do you not go crazy? And the answer is, I'm not alone. I'm never alone. I have you guys. You have changed the course of this game for the better in a lot of ways. And my life has certainly been changed a lot being a public creator on YouTube while being a game developer. And I want to talk about that in this video because it's been something that's been in the background this whole time while developing Project Feline, and it's something I do spend a lot of time thinking about, and it adds sort of a dimension to the development of Project Feline that isn't there for a lot of games. And that can come with a lot of great benefits and a lot of great challenges too. A lot of these dynamics, a lot of it comes down to attention. Attention is great, but it can also change you in a lot of ways. And it certainly changed me since the beginning of my journey. I'm really passionate about this game. I want this to be great. And it is incredible to me that there are people out there that are just as passionate as I am about this. But I've learned while sort of having this attention is that you got to treat it very carefully. You have to respect the attention, and you can't just take it unquestionably. You got to be careful and have a certain attitude about it, because if you don't, I've seen this happen to people where if they get attention and they aren't ready for it, or they don't know how to process it correctly, it can destroy them. When you're being paid attention to, you set expectations for the people watching you. And if you're not careful with that, if you're not paying attention to what you're saying and being careful with what you say, then it can mislead people, it can create false expectations. And if those expectations aren't met, then that can destroy that relationship. I'm sure a lot of you can name examples where that's happened to you, where a developer has made some kind of promise and you were expecting one thing in your head, and then they go to deliver the game and it just doesn't live up to what you expected, and you feel like you've been scammed. I do genuinely think, especially for indies, that a lot of the time it really isn't on purpose. It's just they don't know what they're saying, and they don't quite get the expectation they're setting. I try to be very careful about what I say, and sometimes the right thing to say might be nothing. And that can be a tough move sometimes, and it can put strain on the communication between all of you and me sometimes. Maintaining a relationship with an audience with that going on, it is tricky, because maintaining relationships, especially while making a video game, can be quite difficult. I mean, I'm sure like you've heard heaps of stories of like AAA devs in the middle of crunch, and they're struggling to even maintain relationships with other team members or their own families. Like their families might go days without seeing them. And if you've got an audience that's like invested in what you're doing, that's a relationship with a lot of people. It's just an extra part of the dynamic that's also going on top of all of the game development that's also happening, which is that's really demanding as well. When you get a lot of attention, one thing you can equally attract is a lot of criticism. I've been very lucky that a lot of the feedback I get from people is very supportive and positive, but as a creator putting things out publicly, you do attract a lot more criticism than you would not doing that and keeping everything private. And I think it was certainly the case at the beginning of my journey that I was really underprepared, because, I would get like comments on my videos and I used to try to read them all because I used to get so few that I could do that. And when I saw like bits of criticism saying that like this mechanic sucks, these animations look bad or whatever, I used to get really bothered by it, and I would feel the need to defend myself and go, oh no, it's not that bad, just mentally. I don't know if any of you have like done that before, but it's so mentally exhausting, and it encouraged me and challenged me to rethink my attitude on feedback and criticism. It isn't even the critic's fault necessarily. It's really your choice of how you process it, I found. And this is something I was completely oblivious to starting my journey. And another thing that catalyzed this is that I met someone who went on to release a commercial game on Steam, and they had a pretty tough time with criticism. But what really buried them was like their attitude, because what they would do is for every negative review they got and every negative forum post, they would go in and reply. They like felt the need to reply to every single one and defend themselves. And what's so interesting looking at it from an outsider point of view is that while I understand their feelings, it just looks like you haven't resolved that inner conflict and that you don't have a lot of confidence You have so little confidence that like one bit of negative criticism can completely topple you over. And it adds a lot of validity to the criticism. Because I think when you get criticism from someone and it bothers you, it's probably because it's right. And you know that you have to do something about it. And when I saw these guys deflecting, it just tells me that they know that the criticism is right, but are in denial. And that cognitive dissonance is what's making them act out. And what I took away from this person's story, it showed me what I would become if I didn't get on top of this stuff. I still don't know how my game launch is going to go, so I'm not saying this from an authoritative point of view here. Like I have no idea how well I'm going to handle this, but thanks to having this YouTube channel, having a dialogue with you over the years, it's given me a lot of opportunities to develop this skill, and I'm very thankful for that, because I think if I hadn't had that opportunity, if you guys hadn't engaged with me and me back to you, if we hadn't had this going on, I think I would have been a lot more unprepared. One thing that a lot of people might not assume is a challenge is the opposite of criticism: praise and validation. Praise is great. I've gotten a lot of praise for some of the stuff I've shown in my videos and stuff I've done in my game. And it's very validating. And I think one of the things that is really tricky about being a solo game dev, if you're in a complete bubble and you don't talk to anybody, is that it can be very difficult to continue without any validation at all. I try my best to not need it, but it is really like if you go long enough without it, you can lose your way quite easily, and you can kind of lose your bearings on reality. And that's like why a lot of devs will just quit, because they're just not getting anything from it. And I totally understand that as well. So I feel very, very, very lucky that I get any positive attention at all. At the same time though, you've got to be really careful, because I've found, and I've just seen in my own experience, and I've seen this happen to other people, is that if you're not careful, if you don't treat that praise with respect, then it can destroy you. In the development of Project Feline, I've been tempted to do a lot of things that I know will get me more praise, more positive feedback. But these things might undermine long-term goals that might be more important. So for example, one thing I get suggested a lot is like adding new mechanics, or adding like aesthetic things like skins. Let's use skins as an example. I get a lot of like comments saying you should add like alternate skins, like an urban skin, a medieval skin, a scuba diving skin. If I were to open up Blender right now and spend the next week making a skin for Gabby, and I would post on Instagram or make a video about it, we'd get a lot of positive attention probably. And I could probably guess some of you in the comments right now are going to be typing in like, oh, this sounds like a cool idea, this sounds great. And it does. However, what you're not seeing is the time I'm spending on that I'm taking away from something else that might be more important. There's a lot of tasks that go into a game, and a lot of these tasks are very boring and aren't the sort of thing that yields praise. If you take too much time away from the core stuff that's important, that's a bit harder to appreciate, and you spend it on things purely for the reason of getting validation and building hype. Like if you do that too much, if you indulge too much in that, it can like undermine the rest of the invisible work that has to be done. Those long-term consequences are not really apparent at all from the surface. And the thing that's so insidious about it is that the creator is being rewarded and validated for making what could be the wrong choices for the game. And the players or the audience that is rewarding those choices aren't being shown the long-term ramifications. And I share this stuff because at the beginning of my development journey, I was very unprepared for this stuff. I didn't really even think that these would be factors, and they're very invisible things that you don't really notice until you're in there. These skills, these dynamics, these aren't specific to YouTube and to devlogs. I think these skills really do apply to any creative field. These are going to be skills I need when I launch my game. So while it's been a lot more work to share devlogs, I'm very glad that I did, because thanks to your input, it's helped turn me into a much better person than I would have been if I hadn't shared this journey at all. And the thing that I've taken away having this dialogue with you guys over the years is that when creators indulge in behaviors such as, letting attention go to their head, or taking criticism personally, or chasing like short-term praise, I've learned that all of that comes from when a creator doesn't have an intrinsic sense of worth. And when you get a lot of attention, when you get like views, it can be very tempting to tie that into how you see yourself. And that's something that I've certainly been at risk at as a creator. I'm sorry I haven't been as active on this channel as I was at the beginning of the development journey. Part of the reason that is just because I needed space to work this stuff out, to make sure I was putting my sense of worth in the right place, and that I wasn't being consumed by the temptation of like how these social platforms work. And doing that, you know, it's given me a lot of time to make progress on the game, and there is a lot of progress I still have to talk about. I do feel that by withdrawing too much, I've left you guys out of a lot of it. And I didn't mean to leave you out. I didn't mean to do it on purpose. I'm trying to work my way up to sharing more things more frequently on the channel again. So I know this video was a bit less about the game and more about me. However, I think personal development is equally as important as the game development. You know, if you want the game to be any good, it's got to be made by someone worthy and capable of making a good game. And yeah, part of the thing that's been really fun on this development journey is to try to turn myself into the guy capable of making Project Feline. Another reason I haven't shared as much is just because the devlogs have been taking longer and longer to make, because I try to put more and more effort into each one. But I want to try and work my way back to sharing things a bit more frequently. So I know this video was a bit lower budget than my normal content, but if you enjoyed this one and you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Anyway, I gotta get back to work on more dev and more videos, so I'll see you in the next one.